over the place.
I'll go, Amina. What do you think about Twitter changing hands?
So at the end of the day, it's a $1 billion company. So I expect for any company to have checks and balances. I expect that any big corporation is going to have people that, before we even make a decision, it has to go through several people. And I trust that that is what's going to happen here. I mean, I don't see when I see the changing of ownership. I don't really. I trust within myself that they are a company that has checks and balances, and just because they have this big $1 billion owner, that business is going to be as usual. So I really don't. As far as ethics and morals is concerned, I really don't go either way. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a corporation. It's a social media corporation. It's worth over $1 billion, and I expect that as a corporation, as a company, that there's going to be people being able to say, okay, hey, we don't want you to make that decision, or
Right.
here's what we want to do with it, or
Well,
you've got
Somebody always got something
on
to
the
say.
team.
well,
I
the
agree
buck,
with her. I'm good.
the buck has to stop somewhere, and I think that because nobody made a big deal about Mark Zuckerberg
Right.
owning Facebook and uh, Instagram and what was it, Snapchat. Like, he owns all of these different ones, and he's very much Democratic leaning. He's a very liberal leaning person. So I think that we're hearing too much on the liberal side and not enough, because I mean, I think Twitter, with this in place, will allow voices for both sides, because Elon even said once he made the purchase, it's like, this is still going to be a place for even those who disagree with me, and that's what he's looking for,
We'll
something
see.
that's still going to be very balanced.
We'll
I
see.
do.
That'll come out eventually. But I agree with her that I don't think it really matters. And what he was saying in the video was like the previous major stockholders were like BlackRock and what is it, Voldemort or Volum
Vanguard.
Vanguard, yeah. So Vanguard and BlackRock, and so how ethical are those people? And so I think that basically it's not going to change much. Like, not much. I don't think it really matters as far as things changing, because they're making it seem like, oh, it's this one guy owning the things, but we went over in the other video, we went over how like these what was it, 6 companies own almost all the media.
Well, I think that, because see, the main thing is, because see, that's the main reason why I see it being a difference, is because if the main people who, the majority of people, these people have the biggest stakehold in all these other media companies, and then it's being branched off and separated from those people, we now have something that's going to actually be more open to, more voices. At any point, if they decide that there's a certain message that they don't want to get across, like with YouTube, you get shut off. You know what I'm saying? Like, they will freaking freeze you can't even, you don't won't even have your platform, based on the fact that you can get cut off for saying certain things. And I believe that that's one of the biggest problems, because I mean, our First Amendment right is freedom of speech. Now, will we have to pay for what we say, or whatever? Yeah, you will, but at the same time, I think that we need to have the conversations, because without those conversations, we get nowhere. If we only have one side, it's always one side winning.
So I think deplatforming, which is what you were talking about, is a very important issue, but it's happening across progressive social media as well. So I don't know if you're familiar with TikTok. Like, there's also deplatforming happening on there from both sides. So I was seeing personally that around the time that I think we were, the climate change activists, Black Lives Matter was happening. TikTok was actually banning a lot of creators that posted anything towards that. So I think it's happening on both sides. What I think that I hear you say is that it does matter if the face of the company has this idea. And I get why you think that. But you have to understand this is one person in a, in control of this, billion-dollar company corporation, and that these people are more like the face of it rather than the decision makers, if that makes sense.
Right.
Well,
Because
I
look,
think.
wait, let me
I mean, who?
backpack on her. Because what if I had $44 billion and I wanted to buy Twitter? Do you think they would let me?
I mean,
I
at
think
some
so.
point, you force their hand. Like
I,
they didn't want to sell it to Elon Musk because he's not a part of the culture that they're trying to use to censor certain voices. Like
but at
that's why it was such a big deal. If it would have been a Mark Zuckerberg, they would have been like clapping, hey, yeah, yeah, okay, because he's on their side. So the reason why it was a big deal is because Elon Musk has different visions, a different idea of how at least America's supposed to work or our world should be working, because he's like, I'm open to other people's, like, he became a billionaire by listening to different people regardless of what angle they come from. He doesn't even, yeah, of course he hires engineers and this, that, and the other, but he also hires people who don't have a degree because they have just simple, great creative minds. So I mean, it's a way to really, you know, open the door for more conversation. Whereas I believe that there's certain conversations, if it's not going a certain direction, you get silenced much quicker.
I
And
think I think Elon Musk's image is not real, man, and because Tesla got in trouble, the dude sued them for racism. I think this has happened multiple times, and they win. If you win a racism suit, then they must have been acting pretty damn racist. And I want to say
well,
this happened more than once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
well, I mean, I'm gonna tell you, that's, a lawsuit can go either way based on, because I mean, man, I don't necessarily agree with that. Now, I mean, was it racist? I'm not here to really I wasn't there. I can't say if it was real racism there or not. But as far as law cases, like, I mean, people that should win lose all the time, and people who should lose win. Like, it's just that dynamic is there. I mean, it's gonna happen, and like I said, I'm not gonna sit here and try to argue the fact whether it was racism there or not, but just the fact that what we're talking about in this is that this is more of an open space where you're not gonna get censored when everybody has a right to express their opinion, whether it's right or wrong.
So may I ask, do you think now that Elon is on the team, he's bought the company, that what is the censorship going to look like now? Do you think there's going to be any censorship? Do you think that the degree at which they were censoring people and claiming defamation is going to happen a lot less, and that if we think about it that way, I think you're putting a lot of power into the purchaser of this billion-dollar company than the people. I think the people have a lot of power to choose if they want to support a platform or if they don't want to support a platform.
Well,
And
no, I mean, to see the support, that's a totally different thing, because I mean, everybody has a right to support it or not to support it. But to say that this man shouldn't own it, and he has the, he can buy it. Obviously, he can, purchase it. He gave all of those shareholders a great big profit when he purchased it. So everybody can back out if they want, but it's a big platform, and I think most people want to be able to have a space to speak. Now, it's still going to be on the individual if they want to go step out there and defame someone, and that's going to still be on them individually. But as far as having an open platform for people to speak is what we haven't been getting.
but
Okay, I'm curious. So with this being in mind, let's say Twitter, was it Twitter or Tumblr? Not too long ago, they actually banned all pornography, right? And so you're saying that, okay, we have this man at the face of the company that is in support of free speech. How far does that go before we hit child endangerment? So I understand what you're saying. You're spearheading that. He's a part of this company now, and things are going to start changing. And there might be some change. There might be some people put in different places just because he has the money, or he has that influence, replacing the chairman or whatever it might be. But how far does that go? Because there's a far enough level where you have to say, okay, we have to fact check, or we have to do this, we have to do that, but it can't be any bias. So how far does that go? How far does your support for Elon go? For like, okay, if he supports this, then I'm on. If he doesn't support this, then I'm off. How far does that free speech go? How far does that like open-mindedness go?
And you're saying personally?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm not for, I mean, like, I think it should still be a respectable place to go for any age, if it's open, because I mean, I think you have to be at least a teenager to, uh, to get on the platform. But I think it should still be a respectable place. I don't think it's going to change as far as that, but I think that where it's silencing certain voices where, because I mean, we don't even have to talk about sex. I mean, when it comes to even to like to racism, I mean, people should be able to express their voice, but putting explicit things on the platform, I think that's going too far.
Okay,
So
but you have people whose beliefs are explicit. So where do you draw the line?
I couldn't really hear you.
You have people whose beliefs are explicit and extreme. So where do you draw the line? Whose very
Such
core
as
belief.
what? Give me an example. Like what?
There in some cultures you're allowed to. There's some cultures where groups that cannibalism is allowed. Doing certain things towards your dead is allowed. Treating people a certain way. If we think about India, I mean, their whole system where they have untouchables, that is their culture. Now, is it politically correct? Is it what everyone else would do? No. But like, you have people who have their beliefs and also want this free speech. So, I mean, there's multiple ways to kind of go at this. I agree. I don't think a lot of people know what their body wants or want. There's not a lot of people who are well versed in their body. And then on top of that, you have a communication issue, which is people aren't able to communicate what they like, what pleases them. They might have the mindset where, oh, I have to like this just because I'm a guy. Oh, I have to do this just because I'm a girl. I have to. So there's a lot of expectations. So when you combine not knowing your body, and then on top of that, the expectations where the guy's supposed to be, even there are expectations on men and sex, that they're supposed to be performing a certain way, they're supposed to be doing certain things. And then women have this same way of coming at it. Okay, I'm supposed to really like it. I know that this could possibly be an ego boost, and this could crush my man if he doesn't think that I'm enjoying it. So I think there's a lot going on. And from a psychological perspective, I will say with people who experience, so I'm more well versed in the psychological part of it. With people who experience ADHD and autism, you mask. So you look at, okay, what is the world showing me? How do I learn from the world what to do? And so you might see men getting down, this rabbit hole of, okay, this is how I'm supposed to perform in sex. This is what I'm supposed to do. And women, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this. And I'm supposed to be like the freakiest person in the sheets. And I'm supposed to figure it out. And they're both like, okay, I'm looking at the world to see how to perform, and I don't know what's going on within myself. So I will say I was diagnosed with autism probably 2 weeks ago.
Mm.
And it had gone undiagnosed for so long because of how well I masked it, how well I was able to perform. I mean, I will say, like, a lot of my life has been, oh, you talk, very white. Oh, you perform this way. Oh, you're an
Articulate.
old soul. And so I often look to the world on how to be a person, how to be a woman. Before I got married, I was looking up YouTube videos, articles, how to be successful in a relationship, how to be successful in a marriage. How do I do this? How do I be the best person? How do I fulfill all of his sexual needs and do everything? And I was looking to the world on that instead of being, okay, I've gotten that information. Now, what do I know about myself? How do I handle stressful situations? How do I handle if I'm, in a conflict with him and I don't know how to handle it? How do I say to my partner when I really do want to do my best to please him that, hey, I'm just not feeling it right now?
News networks are not even getting clicks like that. So this shows like there's an opportunity for this, what we're doing here on this show.
So I really enjoyed seeing you be confident in your perspective. And I think that you have a lot to say, especially I saw a lot about social issues and politics. And I will be honest, like, I'm not as well versed as I probably should be. But I really appreciated being able to learn from your content. I think a lot of people, and also have a different perspective. So I think a lot of people, it's kind of like an echo chamber. They like what they
Right.
like hearing what they like hearing. And so I'm very much a person who I love seeing both sides. I love getting different perspectives. I love getting different opinions. So I really enjoy being able to learn things from you.
I mean, but no, but just think about this. For somebody who disagrees with the LGBT, uh, agenda, ways of life, and you happen to just express your clear view, like you're now deemed like somebody who's like you hate these people. No, I disagree with these people. Doesn't mean I hate them. You know what I'm saying? So how is it that I can, like these types of things are able to be pushed out and nobody can really have any pushback with it? So many people are so scared to even say, no, I don't believe in that shit, because they worried about the kind of pushback they're going to get and what they're going to be called if they say that they don't agree with it.
And if you live in a totalitarian system, then ostracizing people, damn, I can't talk today, it is the way to go, right? You know what I'm saying? And persecuting them in the streets, even like, in front of people. And that's what happens in the crowd when you're at work or any kind of environment. You know what I'm saying? And you talk about something that's unapproved, conversation, then you're gonna get ostracized.
So me agreeing that nature has one direction and that's it, that there's only boys and girls, men and women, and I say, to hell with the other conversation that oh, you can choose that once you're born, the doctor is just guessing when you come into the world that you're a boy or a girl, and I was like, that's bullshit, and now I'm wrong.
Because you're not being sensitive to their feelings.
No.
I think two things can be true at once, right? Like I have this conversation with my husband all the time. I personally think that if there weren't
Some
so I
things are
was
not.
talking about this because we were talking about whether I should put a pink collar on a boy puppy. And that's weird. But at the time I was like, I don't understand our society's obsession with needing to literally transition into another gender if we all understood that there are many ways to be a boy and many ways to be a girl. So if we truly grew up thinking there are many ways we can express ourselves as a boy, there are many ways we can express ourselves as a girl, we wouldn't have this obsession with trying to perform the other gender.
Right. It's a performance.
Look,
Wait, before you say, Pat, let me say this, because the whole thing with the pink is stupid as hell anyways, because
I wear pink.
yeah, and back in the days they used to put pink on boys and blue on girls. And people don't even know this history, and then they like, they're so dogmatic about it. Go ahead, Pat. I had to back her up.
Well, my problem is because I mean when we get into the specifics of it, because they've made this into a whole like a articulate agenda. So like my thing is there is when you come into this world, except in rare cases, are you one? I mean, other more something other than a boy or a girl. Now, somebody might figure out later in life that they have more feminine attributes than masculine, but you're still what you were born as. You're still a boy or a girl. That a girl can yeah, I am kind of more on the masculine side, and I like girls, and this okay. I dap you down. Look, that's you know thyself. And the same for a boy. If you're a boy and you have more feminine attributes, but you're still a boy.
Yeah. So the scale of masculinity and femininity is different in everybody, and women can fall over here and men can fall over there. So like that's just what it is.
I would shut the hell up if that was the argument.
Yeah.
But they're telling people that you can change, like just because of how you feel changes your gender. No, it doesn't. This is scientifically proven thousands of years ago, and within a couple of 10 or 20 years, that now is different. No.
I wanna change the subject because I just feel the tension. Let me play this though. I'm gonna take you on a socialism journey, but it's not really though.
Idea
Let's
of
go.
landlordism. To get the primary thesis of the video out of the way, landlords are mostly parasitical in the economic sense. People who hoard property in order to profit from the misery of inbuilt income inequality that exists and that they massively contribute to within capitalist societies. I'm not talking about individual landlords here or their moral character, just the entire institution. Furthermore, I care less about your elderly grandparents that work their whole lives to have a single property to rent for their retirement, and more about the multi-million and billion-dollar individuals and companies that own dozens, if not hundreds and thousands of properties with basically no oversight. Historically, landlords over land got it through aristocratic privilege, politically preferential treatment for the ruling class, or outright robbery. This is the story of pretty much all large non-state-owned land, be it first world or third. Let's share a few.
Wait, pause. And this is what I believe to be true. And what's crazy about this is like we was having the argument in the other show about people who don't really do anything. You know what I'm saying? And I was arguing that there was a lot of people that are like that, and you was like, nah. And but the thing is about these people, lords or landlords, these people didn't get these lands like.
Amino, he's picking on me right now. So you just sit back and watch this.
They didn't get their fucking land through no fucking fair ways. Like they stole it or whatever, shady paperwork.
Okay, see, all right, you got
pennies,
a different. All right, you got a
pennies
different argument. This is a different argument.
Well,
No, you're right. In most cases, that is true. But you said we had the same argument. This is something different because the last argument was that rich people don't do nothing. Like, no, mental energy drains you more than physical energy. I
agree with that.
So,
but I'm saying that there's a bunch of people who didn't really, and then in the end they don't do nothing. So and then they're not producing. They're not producing a damn thing. So, anyways, let me play a little bit more of this.
A few quotes from Adam Smith and
you
Karl
for,
Marx.
they obviously are because
in
you're
general.
going to them to rent something. Like
Because they stole the land in the first place.
Well,
And
that's
then it's
not true
like,
with everybody because shit. My dad's a landlord. He ain't steal nothing.
but the whole but on the premise, the idea of land ownership is ridiculous off top. It's the earth, and it's here. It's Garden of Eden. It's for all of us.
Okay, all right. Are we supposed to now, because
I'm
of the
not saying
construct,
no
because
private
of the
property. I'm not saying that
because of
argument.
no, because of the construct that because I mean, at one point the people, they had it was a free for all. As long as you can go and section off whatever you want, it was yours or whatever. And then from then on, it's they took up some ownership. Oh well, from this line to that line, that's mine. And if you want a piece of it, it's gonna cost you this. Is that wrong, or
Well,
is that
historically, it was murder. It was war,
Right.
well?
So
Th-
blood.
that's that's
genocide.
that's yeah, that happened. That definitely happened. And
So anybody, most of these people who have large, huge amounts of land, did not get that, really fair way or whatever. And
okay.
then they not producing anything, and you get to pay just to freaking stand there. Let me play some more of this.
General, shall we? Landlord's right has its origin in robbery. The landlord, like all other men, loves to reap what they never sowed and demand a rent even for the natural produce of the earth. The landlord is the one whose revenue costs them neither labor nor care, but comes to them, as it were, of its own accord, and independent of any plan or project of their own. Adam Smith even dunks on the idea that landlords justify themselves by maintaining the land that they own. The rent of land, it may be thought, is frequently no more than a reasonable profit or interest for the stock laid out by the landlord upon its improvement. This, no doubt, may be partly the case upon some occasions. The landlord demands 1. A rent even for unimproved land, and the supposed interest or profit upon the expense of improvement is generally in addition to this original rent. 2. Those improvements, besides, are not always made by the stock of the landlord, but sometimes by that of the tenant. When the lease comes to be renewed, however, the landlord commonly demands the same augmentation of rent as if they had been all made by his own. 3. He sometimes demands rent for what is altogether incapable of human improvement. Now, if you'll indulge me one more quote, Marx beautifully says, "Let us now see how the landlord exploits everything from which society benefits. Every improvement in the circumstances of society tends either directly or indirectly to raise the real rent of land, to increase the real wealth of the landlord, his power of purchasing the labor or the produce of the labor of other people." In essence, according to Smith and Marx, landlords are those who love to benefit from labor they didn't do, who contribute next to nothing as a generator of revenue from their so-called investment, and are ones that benefit from society without benefiting society themselves. Now, are there any good landlords? Well, no, not really. Again, this isn't a moral argument or a commentary on the character of individual landlords, but even in the best case scenario, where you have a landlord that charges you a so-called reasonable amount, actually repairs stuff, and is nice to you, there still is an imbalance in this relationship, one predicated on violence through threat of eviction, mind you. Firstly, how nice he is to you depends on your paying of the rent, and out of the money you pay, he takes a sum and uses it to repair stuff, so in all honesty, it's you
Wow.
paying for the repairs of someone else's property. And the so-called reasonable amount he charges doesn't change whether the mortgage on the property is paid off or not. In fact, I've never heard of a rent discount once a mortgage on a property was paid off, which should be logical for the oh-so-nice landlord. He is still sitting on and profiting from property that you could have gotten a mortgage yourself to pay and actually live in the damn place instead of just accumulating property to rent out, but the bank deemed you too insecure of an investment to make monthly $600 payments. As a result, you pay $1,200 to a landlord, month in and month out, for your entire life, basically.
Entire
Someone, or
life.
more commonly a massive corporate entity, just so happens to start off with more money than you, and as a result, you have to continuously put money into the cycle of ever-increasing
Sounds like
income
a bunch of
inequality despite
haters.
having the long-term ability to pay off shelter that you would actually be living in.
Go ahead. Comments.
I mean, he sounds like a hater. Like, I mean, bro, look, it's business, man. You're on one side or the other. Like, I mean, either either you could be a landlord too yourself if put yourself in a position. Now, of course, there's some extreme situations where somebody like owns a freaking country. You know what I'm saying? They can, like it's crazy stuff. But I mean, come on, bro. The whole idea that just a regular like let's say like my dad, for instance, like he bust his ass for 30+ years working for somebody, and he bought some property and he's renting it out and he's making a profit. He's a bad person now.
No. So I think, like I said before, two things can be true at once. You can have a business. Does it have to be ethical? No. So I can speak on this. I have what other people deem is an unethical business, depending on how you look at it. So I
You
breed
mind
dogs.
speaking on that?
I breed
What,
dogs. And some
what's
people think, oh, there's so many stray dogs already. Like, there's millions
oh
of dogs
god.
dying in the shelter. And
Mhm.
so I'm like, okay, I understand that. But I know that, one, I want to improve the life. It depends on how you go at it, how you conduct your business, how you do it. Well,
Slump.
it at its core could be like, okay, you're bringing more lives into the world when there are dogs out there. Yeah, but like the two things can be true at once. It could be true that yes, I'm sorry, your father. Did you say
Yes.
your father? Your father owns a business, and
Hmm.
I mean, you could say historically, ethically, he's a landlord. There's I
Yeah.
don't think we can tell much from the morals of what an individual does, especially in like like a capitalistic society. And I think this more speaks to BlackRock, Tricon, all these places that are taking away at a rate that we homeowners aren't doing ourselves.
Well, see, but
Yeah.
that's where the problem lies is when these big corporations are trying to pretty much out like
I,
they're outpacing the
Right,
rest of humanity,
right,
I
overpricing
saw
things
a
so
story.
that you can't afford to
They
buy.
doubled the
Because
price and paid cash of this house that this lady was trying to get.
I,
That
I
one of the
I know. I look. I live in the Austin area now. Like that's going rampant. But that's not even like that's happening just from regular people. They moved from California where they had half the house for twice the amount what they're coming to buy a house here in Texas. So it's like
mhm.
of course the market went up, but they were willing to pay cash. Let's say $100,000 more because they're paying cash, and they still would pay less than what they would if they had bought that house for
Yeah,
30
but that's not
years.
what I'm talking about. You talking about California from Texas. Those are two different real estate
No,
markets. So
well, no, I get it. I get it. But
and
I know what you're saying as far as like because like BlackRock,
right, they just come
Vanguard,
in and
um,
double the price and pay cash. With no person can, you can't compete with that.
well, see the problem with that is I think y'all missing what's really happening because a lot of them are like BlackRock owns the bank that owned
So
the house.
so it's really the
So
banks.
it's well, no, I mean what? See, it's perceived to have gone up in price, where it's just a transfer of ownership. Like the now just take this for because I mean maybe this is a part of my conspiracy, but at the same time I really believe this is happening. Now, of course, like you said, BlackRock owns the banks. BlackRock and others, like a lot of them, or at least have high stock in a lot of these banks. So when a property comes available, it's on the market, and they decide they want it. They say it went up, or they say somebody gave an offer of double the price, but they really just bought it for a little more, or because really it's already owned by the bank. It just needs to be a good enough profit
I
for.
get what you're saying. I get what you're
Yeah,
saying. The actual money transfer don't be that, and it's just to fucking push everybody out. But look,
yeah.
what I wanted to say was, this particular topic, brings out the anarchist in me because I don't even like their system at all. I don't want to be a landlord because I don't want to be them. If that makes any sense, because your argument is, play the game, like they do. You know what I'm saying? I don't want
Well,
to play the game like
if
them.
you want to if you want to change it, but that's the thing. Like, I mean, you can't just be a peon and expect that you're gonna make power moves. No, you're gonna have to have some skin in the game. You gotta have some capital to be able to, take some ownership of some of these things within this system to be to where you can change the system. Like we have to be active in order for things to be different if we want it to
I
be
agree with the
different.
premise of what you're saying, but I used to think like that. But then that kind of goes back to the whole idea of what I was saying. Batman is a bad guy, and I feel like Elon Musk is like Batman. You know what I'm saying? And it's like Batman's gonna come save the day type shit. So and then each one of us is like, oh, we're gonna try to be Batman. You know what I'm saying? And that's not how you make change in a society. People need to come together as a community and agree that okay, we're not going to do this or whatever, or we're going to do this or whatever.
Spider-Man was wanted by the cops.
I'm sure Batman was too.
But I'm just saying, like, okay, these are people that's considered vigilantes, but for the purpose, the intent is where, like the moral code is where they're winning. Whether you call it good, bad, or indifferent,
But that's
I have
different.
a question for
But that
you, if you don't mind. How do you think billionaires become billionaires? Not millionaires, billionaires. Are you going to tell
shrewd
me it's all
business.
hard work?
No, I would say it's shrewd business. I mean, I'm not fooled by the system. Like my thing is to overcome it. So, I'm willing to be Batman if I need to be.
So the change you're talking about has to be done on a billionaire level, right?
that's my argument because otherwise you won't have the power to actually make those kind of moves. So, but that's not
So,
right though.
so, so,
That's
so do I sit back? Let me ask this question. So do I just sit back and just talk shit about the billionaires and keep accepting whatever they dish out? Or do I do something so that, you know, at least the people close to me don't experience the same shit?
You
right.
educate. You
But
help
that's
people get out of this like disillusionment of what is the American dream.
right. And that's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to do with this
I mean,
show.
I don't think sitting on my hands is gonna do anything. It's definitely not gonna do anything.
But
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 if I at least have a good intent in my motion, and I set the next generation up to they're not starting where I started, I'm doing something to change the world.
this is a fundamental argument within the community right here. You have segments of the community who fall right there with Pat, and then you have segments that fall with the other one. And then because it's just kind of like a different way to kind of go at it. Because I look at like Beyonce and Jay-Z, like they're the example of going at it the way that Pat is saying. Like it's kind of like doing. Look, let me explain.
Maybe.
Because they're like, we're gonna do this thing that they do, but we're gonna do it better and even prettier and with more class. And that's their way of going at this thing. You know what I'm saying? And that's fine, but because like it's like, and if you look at it, it's really true because the Jay-Z be hiring white folks for shit all the time. They be his little assistants and little like maids, and he has it's like little slaves. I'm telling you, bro. You see him walking around him.
Okay, but look. Let me just say
He's
this
like, I'm gonna
because
just fucking do what they
look.
did. Fuck it.
Well, I will, but at the same time, I look at it this way: like you can like, there's no pride in being poor unless you failed from trying.
And really, poor is a mentality. You know, poor is a state of mind. Anyways,
Okay,
we live in
poor
abundance.
poor thinking. I mean, give an effort. Like, stop just talking about, what.
And I agree
Look what
with
they
you.
did. Look what they did.
I agree
Huh?
with that.
Huh? I'm a tell.
I agree with
And
that spirit.
a part of it is when you get to a place, putting those people at your table. So I was talking with my uncle and I was like, I support it. I've got to be a part of it then. I support it. Like I want to help. I want to be involved. And so that comes with same thing with my brother. When I got to a place when I was better, I was like, okay, let's bring you back. Let's bring you up. Let's do this. Like once you get to that place, it comes from bringing other people up. And on a
Yeah.
small scale, that is very impactful. But if we're talking on a global scale, it takes lots of money and lots of power and policy.
And I think that the
Well,
focus has to be on community, because
what,
looking out for yourself and your family, that's the damn American dream right there. And that's the damn
it
thing that they
is.
sell everyone, and that's what they got everybody on. That's why everybody's on the corporate ladder and
But
running, trying
look,
to make their yard bigger and nicer than their neighbors.
but what? Answer this: where does the revolution start?
It starts with us. It starts with us building a
It
community.
starts with home.
Right. That's true. That's true. I say that all the time. That's the nation. So, but that's what I'm going to talk about this week. So that's kind of a good segue, but I'm going to play some more of this video. But empires, colonialism, and how is it continuing? And why is France so damn powerful? So, like what the fuck? You know, the more I think about it, it don't make no goddamn sense. But if you look around the world and you see how many colonies they still have to this day, then boom, now it makes sense. So, but that's related to this, because it's like I said, controlling the people is by getting them on that look out for me and my family, and that's it. That's the same way they ended up doing the Holocaust and killing all the Nazi killed all the Jews. They had everybody on that. Let me just look out for myself and my family.
Come on.
I'm going to the extreme.
That
I
is
am.
far
But I
out there.
always say slippery road. I always say that. And so the thing is, I don't want. I'm an anarchist. Burn their fucking system down. The Aboriginal peoples, and they was coming over here. They talking about this is my land now. They was like, what the hell are you talking about, bro? Like,
Well, no.
my ancestors bled on this
No,
forever.
coming here with the idea that this was the new world. Motherfucker, this is the oldest world you can find. Like the oldest civilizations
And the
on the
basis,
planet is here.
after I studied real estate, I realized the basis of real estate is shady from the jump. All property in the United States goes back to the United States government.
It is.
Even property that hasn't been prospected or developed
Look,
or owned ever. The deed always goes back to the U.S. But who the fuck had it before the U.S.? It's stolen. It's not theirs from the jump. This is all bullshit. You can't come over here talking about I own this. Get the fuck out of here. This tree's been here forever. Before you, it's gonna be here after you.
You know my background, so you know how I feel about that. I know, like I'm with you on that. But I mean, how do we reverse it? How do we change it? How do we put it into a different system? Do we just talk shit on the damn internet and expect it to change?
Yeah, I feel you.
So that's where I'm getting to. So if I gotta be a shrewd businessman to get into some other people's pockets, whether the rich people's pocket, in order to change it for me and then my family and then my friends and then the circle that's around me, and try to make the circle bigger and bigger as I grow. Because I mean, it's not like this didn't happen in 5 years. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
that's why it's gonna be so hard to dismantle. I say burn it down. That's the fastest way.
The last 200 years, if we say, because I mean, the United States itself, because I mean, I guess it was happening before that, but the United States is what, 200, 100, not even 200 years old.
This idea of colonialism is so ingrained in us. We're so brainwashed, and we want to take the side of the victor, of course, because because you get benefits, you get privileges for that. You know what I'm saying?
You're talking about the majority.
I'm talking about the majority of people. You want to go with the victor because you get privileges for that. So, but they have ingrained this way of thinking that is backwards and unsustainable.
No, the biggest problem is fear. The biggest problem is fear. People, afraid to, do without the freaking Dooney and Burke and the Gucci, and like actually having to go out, build, they actually have to go and grow their own farms
Yeah.
and
Attached,
do the
they're
work.
dependent on the system, but they have created people to be that way, and that's one of the things that bothers me the most, because I see it happening more and more and more and more and more and more. They're making you more and more
If you
dependent.
don't, you're dead.
They're making you more and more and more and more dependent on their system.
I'm gonna
And
say this one more time. If you don't self-govern yourself, start growing your own food, building your own communities, you're dead. The food in the next 20, 30 years is gonna kill you. If you eat
all
from
right, be
if you
careful.
eat from them. I'm just
And
telling you.
it's crazy because I think I've talked about this with my husband Tanner. One of my biggest concerns is a cyber attack right now, because millions of people would die in America if there was a massive cyber attack. We couldn't get access to our money. All the power grid is down. We
Well,
can't get to the grocery stores.
well, it won't be a cyber attack that could really do that, because the networks are too complex.
Well,
But I can tell you what will and can and does and have done in the past is those solar flares. And we're coming up on a season where the
you saw
sun,
that, right?
yeah,
You saw that, right?
I saw
Yeah.
this. The sun is going through a phase where it's being more active, so it's sending out more of those things. So if we was to get a good little pulse, it could knock out all the satellites. It could knock out all of whatever. It'll be like an EMT, and the electricity will shut down everything, until they could get things going. But it'll be like those circuits will be fried, so they might have to rebuild that shit. Who the fuck knows how long it'll take for them to, and it could be over large areas of spaces. So that could be a real problem where people would go fucking berserk. Because if the lights go out and they don't come back on within like a week, a couple of weeks, so people start losing it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the grocery stores, they're already bare. You know, what's my thing is like, okay, who's not like scared that, you know, any moment
You can't go to the grocery store.
you're totally on reserves.
Now
I know, and I know what some of these huge warehouses are now. I mean, I can get a crew together and we can get some shit, but however, I mean, we're only gonna supply so many.
And for so long. And then other people gonna be thinking the same thing. You might die in the process of doing that shit, because it's fucking zombie apocalypse, bro. Zombie robots. Let me play some more of this.
This point cannot be understated. Unless you already have money, the system is rigged against you. Sadly, or better yet, predictably, capitalism turns most necessities, shelter being primary among them, into speculative assets. The housing stock is already built, the workers paid, actual homes just sitting there, but instead comes a landlord buys up several of those already existing properties and extracts profits from the most vulnerable in society. Of course, this isn't even talking about slumlords, through which quite a many seemingly respectable businessmen got their starts. Statistics and realities. This is all according to a great article titled "There is no such thing as a good landlord," linked in the pinned comment below. In the UK alone, there's a housing need of 4.7 million people. The figure in the US is over 5 million, with a need to build 340,000 new homes every year until 2031 to make up the amount. The actual number being built was only 160,000. At the same time, there are 320,000 people homeless in the UK, with almost half of those being children, and 1.15 million people on waiting lists for social housing. In the US, the official figure for homelessness is nearly 600,000 people, but the actual amount is much higher due to a clever sleight of hand intended to paint a more pleasant picture. What this all means is that the supply doesn't meet the demand. Mouthwatering news for a prospective landlord. Less supply with a constant, if not rapidly increasing demand, means property values skyrocket. A two-way street, of course, as more landlords try to buy up as much as they can chasing this golden goose.
He's talking about the artificial creation of scarcity of housing that they do.
Further increasing property prices. People already renting see the potential of ever owning their own property drifting farther and farther away as housing stock depletes and becomes increasingly more expensive, with the average house price being 8 times the UK average wage, and as high as 14 times that in London. The figure is only slightly better at 7 times the average US yearly salary in the United States. In the UK, if you don't earn the equivalent of $83,000 a year, or nearly $140,000 a year in London, then it will be virtually impossible for you to ever own your own place. In the US, to afford the average house price of $374,000 via mortgage, you would need a minimum income of $105,000 per year. For many, a virtual impossibility. You either rent or you're on the streets.
And then they remind you that your ass gonna be out there with them homeless folks.
Thus, you have no choice but to rent and pay whatever price desired by the landlord, as shelters kinda non-negotiable. This isn't even speaking of the lack of options those homeless have, of which thousands die every year during the winter. After all, those homeless and the high likelihood of disease or death are the threat landlords use to force renters to accept ridiculous asking amounts for, in many cases, old, unrenovated, poorly heated, and spatially restrictive homes. The system is fundamentally weighed in favor of landlords, with the average one making more than twice the average national salary within the UK. The US has muddier stats, but the number falls between 1.5 to 3 times the average national salary, depending on how you measure it. Even if there's a downturn in the market and rent goes lower, they still have a property, an asset, something with the potential to appreciate the second the market bounces back.
So I know you're itching to make comment. What you want to say, Pat?
Honestly, I have nothing to say. I mean, I'm just listening. I mean,
Like the anyways, I'm gonna play a little bit more. This video is short.
This is the story pretty much everywhere. Most people spend about 25% of their monthly income on rent, and in some places this number can be as high as 30, 40, 60% or even higher of your monthly income. And the beauty is you can't do anything about it because usually all the good jobs are in large cities with already bloated renting or property markets. Fundamentally, landlords both create and profit from the existence of poverty and homelessness. In all essence, rent is a tax placed by the better off in society on usually the poorest in society for daring to be poor and wanting to live somewhere habitable. Landlords are superfluous. It's absentee ownership. Landlords earn money from tenants due to property rights, not their labor. Landlords make their money while sleeping, eating, or just existing while you go to work every single day. All while not living there and being able to charge you however much they want and dictate terms on how you live in your own home, which isn't really your own home. As with every argument in the support of capitalism, choice is equated with an ultimatum. They take the money you pay them to pay off the property and then take a little extra as profit. Everything a landlord does or pays for comes from your wallet, be it property tax, maintenance, or whatever else. If the landlord didn't exist, then the tenant would pay less overall. Landlords are unnecessary middlemen that profit off of poverty and homelessness. There is no skill required to buy housing, with the only requirement being money or access to finance. To notice that there is a need in a community for housing is to notice that people need food, meaning a completely ridiculous thing to stake your right to hoard housing to. To quote the Greater Manchester Housing Action, a landlord might argue that they possess a skill in predicting in advance when a residential area will gentrify, and then use their skill to invest shrewdly in such areas to bring themselves greater profit margins. Such a skill is of no benefit to society, so it's unclear why it warrants financial reward. Minimal bravery is required to invest in a rental property. In the unlikely event a landlord fails to find some desperate soul to rent their purchase to, they still have a capital asset that is likely to have appreciated in value. The administrative burden of being a landlord is minimal when compared with running a cotton mill or a curry house. Relevant examples from earlier in the article. Arranging viewings, having to occasionally call a plumber, supplying annual gas safety certificates, etc. are not arduous tasks. Despite this, many landlords either fail to fulfill their small role adequately or subcontract to a letting agent, who is usually effectively paid by the renter through further inflated rent. By the time a landlord takes ownership of a home, the home already exists. The workers involved in the hard work of physical construction give society its housing stock and the renter their shelter, not the landlord. Our housing stock has already been paid for. That we continue to pay for it again and again in perpetuity is a form of collective madness. The problem is systemic. It's not the individual landlords that are the problem, it's the existence of the landlord layer of society that is. The existence of this entire group that own housing for whatever reason and leaves the rest unable to do the same unless they pay a monthly fee to use said housing that the landlord just has and doesn't use is a societal issue, regardless of whether the person you're renting from is a good or bad person. A potential solution and conclusion. I did not intend for that to rhyme. The obvious solution is socialism, with publicly owned housing for all. Pretty much every single socialist country, both historically as well as today, had either eliminated homelessness or have negligent amounts, especially compared to the behemoth homeless populations of the US, UK, and rest of the so-called prosperous Western capitalist democracies. I've spoken extensively on socialism elsewhere, and concrete steps can only be taken through direct action, organization building, and agitation. To quote an interesting idea termed the people's rented sector from the same Manchester source earlier, if we broke away from landlordism, our housing costs would be limited to the cost of keeping our homes in a good state of repair and fit for human habitation, alongside a small contribution to the cost of continually replenishing the nation's housing stock. For most renters, this would represent a life-changing reduction in housing costs. We would then all have the choice to either use the money saved on things that actually bring us happiness, or cut our working hours, giving us more leisure time to do things that bring us happiness. And we would do so living without fear of homelessness. The overall benefit to society would be immense. Interesting, in my opinion, as one prong of a multifaceted political approach towards housing when working within the capitalist system. However, the only concrete and permanent change will come with the overthrow of the capitalist system and the construction of socialism. And with that said, that's all for this time. I'll probably make another video.
All right.
Yeah, I'm your landlord.
Well,
I need my
look,
rent money. Pat, Chaka,
What's
I need
up?
my money. Get my motherfucking money, goddamn. Hey, look here, I need 23% on top of what you're already paying.
yeah, you about to get slapped.
Yeah, you can slap me, you can call me Susie, give me my goddamn money. Nigga. Shit, you heard me.
But look, I'm gonna say this. Let me say this because first thing I want to say is that people hearing this should be pissed. But secondly, these socialist countries live off of capitalist countries. So like, the people that they spoke about, these mostly European countries that are able to live socialist. Of course, there's some others that are not attached to that same tree that survive on a socialist government, but there still has to be some guarantees that people are going to work. And that was like, I guess one of the problems around the world is that some people get so lazy that,
No, no.
That,
don't
that,
put.
that,
That's what they told the Indians when they told the Indians, if you don't work, you don't eat. And the Indians was like, hey, we was eating before y'all came along with all this shit. Like, now we starving all of a sudden. What the
but
fuck happened?
but they worked,
But
but they worked in
see,
their own ways though.
that's what I'm
Exactly.
saying.
They
They,
worked in their
but
own ways.
okay, so stop telling me no.
No,
Yeah,
because it's the
that's
work. When they said work, they mean work
No,
for
you
a
hear
company.
when I talk, you hear somebody else's voice because that's you. Because see, regardless, that's just like the conversation we had last week. I mean, yeah, you might see some of these people you call rich and they don't do nothing, but no, really they are. I mean, having to organize people and have them, get the work done. That's work.
yeah,
Mental stress. So I
yeah,
mean, regardless of how you look at it, work has to be done. And that's why I said there has to be some guarantee. It has to be people involved enough in their own community where they're living at that they're going to get the shit done. It's going to take work. So don't tell me no. Like it has to happen. Like
yeah.
people have
No.
to be doing.
But
People
but
have
but
to be
that's the
doing
same.
stuff.
That's the same argument that I had when I watched this video, right? And I understand because I'm a renter, and then I think about a socialistic society, right? And I think about okay, free housing for everybody, free college for everybody. Where does that money come from? You know what I'm saying? How does that money?
Somebody,
How
somebody
does
that's
that
working,
money? Yeah, you know
somebody
what I'm
that's
saying.
working.
So
Because see,
I
if
think about that shit. So it's like if we're out here working, you know what I'm saying. You think about it. You're out here working. You're out here paying your fair share. You working right, and you're not getting a break, but there's free housing for everybody else. But you, as the individual that's going to work, busting your back, that's working and lowering your standard, because in most cases, when you work for a corporate entity, and we had this conversation on this very podcast, how sometimes you have to lower yourself when you work for somebody else's business. You have to lower yourself, you have to lower your being, you have to go to a lower vibration, and you're working and you're doing this, and other people are living free off of your back.
Well,
How does this socialistic society exist
well, look, the
without there
oligarchs.
being without there being, because you're gonna have people that's gonna say, you know what, man, this is some straight bullshit. I'm out
Well,
here working, I'm busting my ass, I'm paying taxes, I'm doing this, and then you got these people over here that's in this free housing for free. They're getting government assistance, they're getting this, they're getting that, and I can't catch a fucking break. It's
well,
costing
because the
me every
chief,
time every time I get a payroll check. It costs me when I go to the gas pump. It costs me when my child needs diapers. It costs me when I need a gallon of milk just to make some fucking macaroni, cheese for macaroni. And I'm paying taxes, and this motherfucker over here is getting free housing. Not only that, he's getting a fucking because he or she has 5 or 6 kids, they're getting fucking
and they get the
EBT,
first
and
choice
I
on the
get
fish, and
yeah, and they get the first
Hey,
choice. They
but
don't go to
look,
work, so they get to buy the best striped trout, best bass, and everything else. And I gotta come in this bitch and get catfish, a motherfucking fish that has a period,
wait,
with a fucked
wait.
up ass face
But
on it.
but look, the oligarchs in our capitalist society over here in the United States is living off the people. It's fucking socialism for
yes,
them. They're not paying no damn
okay.
taxes, and they get huge handouts from the government.
Yeah,
I
they
hear, I
do.
hear, I hear, I hear what you're saying, but
It's not
regardless, like, all
fair
right,
either way.
look, in a community where we're talking about like a fair society, even the chief who's at the top and he run the show is working.
Yeah. It's not fair. Look, dude, in this society and the world that we live in, no matter how much you sit back and you try to preach fairness across the board for everybody, there ain't nothing in this life fair, bro. Like even back in the days where Jesus walked this earth. I can't say God walked this earth because everything depicts that God Himself never walked the earth. But even when He was on this earth, when He walked, there's nothing fair, bro. There's no fairness across the board, and I feel like we have to start within our own communities and try to have some type of normalcy, not fairness. Because no matter what you do, no matter how much you give back, no matter how much of a socialistic society that you create, there's always going to be sugar and there's going to be shit. You're just going to
Yeah,
have people that's slightly above the shit, and then you're going to have the sugar. You're never gonna have a fairness, bro. And that's the thing that I try to get people to understand. Even in a socialistic society, you're never gonna have 100% fairness across the board. It cannot exist. We're humans. It'll never exist. That day and time does not exist anymore. And I don't even think it existed when the indigenous people roamed this earth. When they were here, there was no fairness because you
I mean,
had kings, you had chiefs.
there's always hierarchy. So I mean, regardless, like somebody has to be the organizer. So that's usually the chief, somebody who can foresee, have a vision and can, guide people toward that vision. So the people working, not to say that the chief is not doing some form of work on it, for themselves, but like in order for any society to work properly, there has to be organization. And somebody, it can't be 12, 20 people. Now everybody can give some input, but there's got to be somebody that's going to say, all right, well, this is what we're going to do based on all the information they done put everything together. All right, this is what we're going to do. Other than that, everything's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, that's just life. So thinking that it's gonna be just a socialist society everywhere. No, somebody's gonna be, uh, you know, in the trenches. Somebody's gotta be, you know, somebody's gotta go grow the food. Somebody's gotta, if you're gonna sell it to some people to trade the barter, somebody's gotta go do the negotiations. Like I mean, it's gonna be different shit that everybody's gonna have a responsibility for, but everybody's gonna have a responsibility. Like know everybody's not gonna be able to put their feet up on the couch and say, and just shit just gonna be done. I
But
mean,
that's not socialism, and that's not how it works at all.
I know, but no, but that's what I was trying to tell you. But you told me no, 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 no. Said no, but we got to have some guarantees that people are gonna do something. I'm not saying that capitalism has to be the answer,
And that's
but
my
it,
point of even playing the video is that this is what drives most people to do all the stuff that they do. Their rent is their biggest bill. You know what I'm saying? It's what
yeah,
pushes people on the hamster wheel. And I
okay,
mean,
but
it's a
otherwise,
way of
most people
control.
look. No, it's a way of keeping the cycle going. Like if everybody has everything that they need, and like where does it come from? somebody has to put the shit in motion for it to get to the house, for it to, get to your community. Like, or, even if it's within your own community, somebody has to be making sure that these things can come. You can plant the seeds, but nobody go picks it. Then what? You got rotten food just hanging off the damn branch.
And basically, you're making the argument for you need to force these people to work. So that's the point of the rent.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't have to force anybody. It should be understood. Your ass got to get the hell up and do something.
Man, that's the way we were taught growing up, bro. I don't care what nobody say. That's the way we were taught. We were taught that same skill. You get out here, you work for what you want. Ain't nothing in life is free. You know what I'm saying? It's a
I mean,
struggle.
he no, see, he for AI coming and taking over and doing shit,
No,
controlling it
I
and
think
telling what
that
he can do.
I think we've been brainwashed on this particular
No,
topic.
no, I think you've
As
been brainwashed to think that you're not gonna have to get up and do something.
that's not
If
what
you
it's
think
saying, and that's why y'all making those comments tell me that y'all don't really get it, and that's what I
no,
be trying to say.
no, I
Nah,
don't. I
Y'all
I
don't
don't.
get
get
it.
it. I get it
Because
because I'm
regardless,
a renter. I'm a renter, so I understand what exactly what they were saying in that video. I understand what they were saying. You know what I'm saying? Most of us rent from a corporate entity. Most of us rent from a property that's owned by multiple investors that's making a basically a 100% return on their money. I get it, but what I'm saying to you is that even if we as
if you
individuals went out and bought our own property and made it
no,
affordable housing for everybody,
no,
there's
no,
still a
Deuce,
hierarchy.
no, Deuce. If we split the world up perfectly for everybody, everybody is given the land, given a house, everything that you need. Who gonna bring you your food?
People are gonna do things. People like you said.
That's
You
all I'm saying. That I mean,
there
you
have
know,
to
like,
be stuff get done, and it will get
thank
done.
you.
It
That's
will
all
get
I'm
done.
saying.
This is just taking pressure off of people. You know what I'm saying? By what you do is you instead of having BlackRock owning all of these properties, you have them owned jointly. Like I was saying before, like a person in these apartments probably the people that live in these apartments I live in probably could buy this complex together. You know what I'm saying? And then make a board and decide on what the rent is going to be so that they can cover their expenses and pay
No
for
rent.
renovations. And
No
then
rent.
no, it'll have to be a rent because you got to pay
Okay.
for
So how you
stuff, but it don't have to be $1,200 for a 2 bedroom. Everybody
well,
can
I mean,
agree on a fair amount.
okay, but see, look, we could have a fair economy right here where we are in a capitalistic society, but the game has been rigged by the evil scientists because they're fucking genius, but because most people can't really do anything about it. The main thing is that, okay, like inflation, like why does a loaf of bread cost fucking $4 now when it used to cost a quarter? It's the same fucking wheat and flour that comes from the same ground. Like seeds and shit don't cost no more because it reproduces on its own.
And
So like the
and
gasoline when I was a kid was like 50 cents a gallon, or
the
probably even less
Coca-Cola,
than that. Is
and it was
you know what I'm
better,
saying? Yeah. So I mean,
better
my whole
quality.
thing, the whole thing is like the way that they're taxing us, in order for them to have more, which it just like it doesn't make sense. I mean, when there's only so much gold in the world, and we lived on the gold standard before all of this fiat, like we were fine, because
That's the
guess what?
thing.
We
This
supplemented, what we needed by growing our own food, and
exactly. This system is doomed to fail. It's on this exponential growth idea that is impossible.
It's on a
It's
corporate
The
welfare
only
type of deal
the
because
only times that we had a big shutdown is when we dealt with this, this I can't think of the word, but the
COVID.
no, I mean shit, 100 years ago, almost a whole 100 years ago, there was a total financial crash.
and,
But think,
and
but
and
look at this. But you got small businesses, right? So check this out. You got a small business like myself that go on, and I only make about 170, 200,000, maybe at most about 250 a year gross. But you got a company that's making tens of billions of dollars a year. I mean, anywhere between 10 to $100 billion a year.
and
Okay,
and their and
they're
their
making a
employees
profit,
got it, and their
and they're
employees still trying to get some damn government assistance.
yeah.
yeah,
And then on top of that, you take me, who's only making 100,000, $200,000 a year. The government comes down harder on me for taxes, but they'll give somebody that's running a corporation like Bezos that hasn't paid, Amazon hadn't paid taxes since they exist, well, probably about a couple of years after they exist, haven't paid
They,
taxes.
n-
But
but
then
see,
you
but
take
that's
somebody like me
but
who only makes about 100,000, I'm not really making a true profit. I'm making a little
but
bit of a profit, but I
how does
gotta
this
pay
happen?
it's a
$13,000 in
scam.
fucking
It's a
yeah. You
scam
know,
from the jump. That's my
it's
point. From the jump,
They
stolen
make the
land,
law. They make
blood
the
on the
law.
land. I'm gonna take this land and say it's mine, and then sell it back to you
See, and
or
when I
rent it
tell
back to you.
when I tell people this, they're still holding on to the same plan that was made back in the 1500s, the 1400s, of what they were gonna do. Like, I mean, ever since the doctrine of discovery was written, that's what they've been doing, is discovering places that's existed for millions of years already.
Yeah, what the fuck?
that's
I just
that's why
discovered a
you
whole
have
continent.
more.
Wow.
That's why you have more and more. That's why you have more and more people because the way that they look at it in a way, and if you go to any type of money or any investment class, the way they break it down to you is that owning a home is a liability. It's not an asset. And
But
you
And
that's
I've
why
heard
you
that.
have more
I've
and
heard
more
that
see, and
before.
people
when
nowadays
I
that's
heard
not
Vlad
looking into.
say that shit, I was like, oh yeah, he's a definite agent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, look, home ownership is always a good thing, and like,
But you don't truly own it though, bro, because if you got a piece of property in an area that let's just
hey,
say
that
let's just
depends.
say if you own a piece of
Everybody's
property, let's just say you own a piece of property off of the 130 toll road, right? 130 toll road in between Seguin, Texas and Austin, Texas. That is a prominent area to buy property for corporate entities from Tesla, Google, all of these places. You own
Mhm.
property there, you got a house there, you won't sell out to them. So they go to the government. They go to the state of Texas. These motherfuckers claim eminent domain over land that you have already paid to and willing to take your life for this land. That's why you got so many people. That's why the landlords are getting rich because people are like, man, fuck owning property, fuck owning the home. I don't truly own this shit because if the government want it, they can take it. No matter how many years my
Yeah,
family have paid
That's what
but
I.
how
property.
but see, my thing is, how do you retire if you got rent for the rest of your life, if you don't never get a chance to own something, and all you have is just your maintenance on the house, then like, how do you retire?
Yeah,
You know
I
what? You
agree
know
with
why I
you.
like, but you know what? My foster dad, his father didn't own a home. He sold his house, and while he was retiring, he sold his house because he found that it was cheaper to pay rent to a landlord
But
on a
that's not gonna be
house
that's not
than to
gonna.
be paying a set rate of property taxes for the remainder of his life to pay maintenance, to pay rent, which was upwards around like $1,200 a month for a home. Him and his wife. His wife still lives there. He found that it would be cheaper than to maintain a home than to be paying school tax on a property where his child has been graduated from school since 1970 and he's still paying taxes. It's a set rate tax after the age of 65 here in Texas. But he found that it was cheaper for him just to go and rent a house, sell his property, don't have to worry about the upkeep, don't have to worry about paying a plumber to come in and do all new piping on a house that was built in 1948. He found that it was cheaper. He saved money, and to the day that he died, he rented a house in Baytown.
I
Yeah, but look,
I
let
hear
me.
what you're saying.
I know what Pat's gonna say. That person's still not leaving no property for his children. You know what I'm saying? So after he's gone,
Yeah,
and the number one way to build wealth in the United States is by home ownership, and
real estate.
because he
Real
owned that
estate, not
home
home ownership. Real
because
estate, having property,
be,
having property, which he owned property off of I-10, where now Budweiser
right
sits at now, and
and
that's why my foster dad is now a millionaire because Budweiser bought that land from him.
see but look also he was able to do what he was able to do because he owned it in the first place. Like when you said that, that he was decided to rent and it was cheaper.
It
Well,
put him in a different position because he did own it.
yeah.
But
So
but think
that
about this: most people that retire, bro, we truck drivers, Pat, we truck drivers, and I don't know how many. I don't know if you really get around and talk to truck drivers, but I do. I talk to different guys. Most folks right now that are on the brink of retire, they're retiring from the trucking industry. Right now, most of the people that I know, they're selling their homes. They're buying RVs and campers and these high dollar ass dually pickup trucks to pull their campers. They're selling off their homes and all of this shit, and they're traveling. They're going from state to state, living at different RV parks in a camper
Yeah.
because
yep.
Hey,
it's
and more power to him because I mean that's that's one thing that they can like that's their choice. That's what they choose to do. But I think that just with the whole idea of that it's worthless to even try to own a home, whether it's for 25, 30 years and be able to sell it later. Like I mean going into it without being in a proper position of ownership, because that's the main difference. I mean you pay probably the same amount of money, probably you pay less money getting a mortgage, even though you say you never own it, but technically you do have a different position in the buying and selling. So if
mhm.
you go into a rent and you paying more than what you would pay in a mortgage, and then which may be what covers the maintenance or whatever. So I mean, you're still probably spending the same amount of money, but at the end of it all, you decide you want to move to Timbuktu. You can sell it, and you got a lump sum of cash just for holding it in a different buying
Yeah,
position.
I
yeah.
just
I
feel
mean,
like it's a
I'm
racket
with you on that.
from the
I'm with you
jump.
on that because I'm looking into home ownership. That's what I want. Not only do I want home, I really and truly don't want to buy in a subdivision. My goal is to buy, an acre, acre and a half, 2 acres of property, sit on it, pay pay it down, pay extra, build the equity up, and use that money because it's gonna appraise higher, and use that money
Exactly.
as a down payment to build my home on my property. But
That's
so
the
I'm
part.
with it.
That's the part. That's what I'm saying. You're gonna
So
build
wait,
equity.
let me shift the conversation a bit though. So, but what about because wait, and I want to make this comment. I heard about a couple who retired and they bought a boat, like a sailboat, and they live on that, and they just go wherever they want to go, and pay the dock or whatever. And that way they live a lot cheaper, and their retirement is going to go a lot further. Um, but let me shift it a bit. What about the tiny homes? The idea of the tiny homes and the minimalist, and because that's making a wave around the country, and people are getting these like containers and making them into
I
homes.
mean, the containers, taking the containers and making them into homes is one thing, but the tiny homes, I mean, bro, like for us, it's a family of five, and to stay in 140, 127 square feet. maybe 300 square feet tiny home is just not feasible, bro. That's for somebody that's got maybe
Nah,
one or two
hey,
kids.
Deuce, I'm gonna have to show you this video. I done seen some of these mugs hooked up where I mean, cause you can get like 3 or 4 of them and have them connected. You get to get,
You stack them
like
up and arrange
yeah,
them and connect them.
yeah, you can have them like connected, from like different angles. You can go up with it. They can be bolted down into each other. Like I've seen some that was like decked. I'm talking about like it really had me like, okay, yeah, I might
Uh,
have to look at that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I
Because
could do it if it's something like that. But just to say that I'm gonna get one tiny home, even if I didn't, even if it wasn't my, even if it was just my wife and my two kids, but we got my wife, my two kids, my niece, so which is essentially like our child. So it's like, man, that's kind of hard. You know what I'm saying? But
Well,
it would have to be a multiple homes put together
and
to
and,
make
and
that work.
and this is my argument because we have to fundamentally change the way we look at things, and we have to also fundamentally change the way we do things. And that's the only way. That's the change. That's the answer. That's how we get somewhere. But and it starts with us, with the idea of possibly being able to live
and
more
look,
minimally, and also these type of homes more eco-friendly or whatever, like they more like what do you call it, self-sufficient
But the
systems and shit.
wages have to come up. Let's be honest with you though. Let's be honest. The wages have to come up, especially for people that's in the restaurant industry, that's working in those type of industries, fast food industries, or people that are just what they call line workers for like Tyson. And the wages have to
bro,
come up to even to
but
begin to
but but
afford that
no,
because
but
you
hold on,
got
hold
a
on.
tiny
but
home.
No, that's
no.
that's not
But yeah, because
my.
right now we're on. That's not the argument we're on, and plus the tiny home is going to cost less. And if they have these self-sufficient type systems, it costs less for water, it costs less for everything. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you bought it
But self
outright, and
sufficient,
you're
what you
not.
need? So you're still gonna need a water supply
They
to
do, but they
support.
have these reusing water supplies and
No,
stuff like
So
that.
basically, it's like a
it doesn't
camper where
stop.
you got your you got your gray water and black water, like a camper. So you go
You
somewhere and
can
fill your
dig.
tank.
You can still dig and get you a well.
Yeah, but man, I mean, nowadays, I mean, to have the equipment to be able to dig that far down because you got to dig a lot further
You
down
could
than
pay for
what
somebody
than
to
what.
do all of this stuff, and
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that shit
once,
costs. You know how much it
yeah,
costs to
but
have somebody
like
but
it's
come out on your property and
but it's
dig
an
for a well?
investment. And once it's done, now it's done. And you don't have to pay for
yes,
this stuff over time. You're going to save money over time. So that's the whole point. So that people can live and maybe they can just have a little McDonald's job and actually have a decent life with the pay that they already getting, with the price that they already getting, minimum wage or whatever, because they don't have to pay all of this stuff to live.
well,
Every
my
This
my
bills are what driving people crazy. Depression, suicide. This is what it is, and rent is the biggest one.
well, I'm gonna tell you the only like you have
People
to
are miserable.
give yourself a raise. Like worrying about these companies giving you a raise because like I had a conversation today about loads not representing our current state with the fuel and this, that, and the other. So I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So there ain't nothing, because I'm talking to my cousin, talking about kind of rates he getting, and we got more important stuff that we're delivering. I would assume is more important because it's hazmat and this, that, and the other. Oh, okay. So I mean, the biggest thing is self-sufficiency, and whether, like I said, whether it means you digging in your own backyard and planting some seeds and this, that, and the other, well, that takes away the cost of food. You can find ways to save money because that's really where your wealth comes from, is money. You when you learn how to, you can supplement what you would spend by doing something else to still be able to get the same thing.
Yeah,
So
and they always say it's not about how much you make; it's about how much you spend. And Deuce's argument all the time is how niggas want to waste their money on Fendi and Prada and all this dumbass shit and trying to look rich or whatever, instead of investing that money or using it in some other kind of way, you know what I'm saying, a better way. Like using it as leverage, because really it's a tool. So that's how you're supposed to use it. And I'm
Yeah, man.
that's hot shit right there, man.
So what we gonna do?
We want you to be an activist, and don't take our word for it. Look that shit up. Pulley.